My name is Shay. I grew up in a small village in Burma. My mother died when I was very young. So it was just me, my father, and grandmother. One day I was playing with my friends. It was peaceful until I heard the sound of my father's voice. He was yelling, and he was scared. The soldiers came quickly and without warning. People screaming, bullets flying through the air, explosions. I ran to the only place I could think of. I hid inside the outhouse. The screaming was so loud. I put my hands over my ears. I closed my eyes and waited.
They have no parents. They need mother's love. They love me and they call me Amo.
Hi, my name is Patrick Klein. I'm the founder and director of Vision Beyond Borders. Vision Beyond Borders was actually started in 1994. We were started as Asian Vision, and we're going to a lot of the Asian countries, China, Vietnam, Laos, even into Burma. And so we were mostly concentrating on bringing Bibles in. But then we started going to Cuba and Turkey and Romania and started bringing Bibles to other countries and working with orphans. And so we changed the name to Vision Beyond Borders. And so to date, we brought over 2.1 million Bibles around the world to help people that cannot get Bibles or are persecuted for their faith in Jesus Christ. And so the ministry has really grown. And you know, many years ago, back in, I believe, 1996, I was in Burma. I started going into Burma. And at that time, it was very, very closed country. It was very difficult to get in. And so I just kind of went on my own, and actually I went in by myself and tried to meet contacts. And then I had a team one time, and we were walking down the street one day, and we actually saw an advertisement for the Jesus film. And so I found out about it, and they told me that this church was sponsoring it. And so I met the pastor and started working with the church there in Burma. And then probably about 20 years ago, this friend of mine from Burma wanted to take me up north and our team up north to actually see where he grew up. And so it's up in the mountains in the Shan State. And it's just a beautiful area. There's a beautiful big lake up there called Inle Lake. And it's just gorgeous. These little villages that are actually built on stilts over this lake. Just a gorgeous lake, and with the mountains there and the reflection of on the water, it's just gorgeous. And then we rode for about an hour into this city that's up on a hill. And it's called Taungji. And it's just a beautiful city. There's Buddhist temples all around and everything else. But we came in this main road, and right on the side of the road is this orphanage. And it's a house, and it's not much bigger than, the average house in America, And so we went in the back, and here in the back of the orphanage is like a dining hall, and there was probably about 80 kids there, young kids, and they're singing for us. They're singing, "God will make a way where there seems to be no way." And it's just beautiful to hear these kids singing. And I didn't really know their story. And then so we went to the front, to the entry of the house. And in this kind of a living room area, we meet this precious lady. She's probably maybe less than 5 feet tall. Very elegant lady. Has glasses, and you could tell she's very well educated. But they tell me that she is the one who is running this orphanage. And here's a 70-year-old lady with 150 kids in this orphanage. And I was talking to my friend, and he said, we give them 1 bag of rice per month to support these 150 kids, and she just trusts God for all that she needs. And so I met Miss Emerald, and I just have to say, it was an incredible impact on my heart. She just would tell us what was really going on in the country. And I was just shocked by her candidness, but yet this elegance of this lady, and yet such a love for Jesus and a love for kids. Some of these kids have been through very hard things.
Very hard. During the fighting. Yes, war from the war-torn area, yes. The soldiers fighting and killing. Yes, killing. They took the villagers as their porters. They tied them, and they asked the villagers to walk in front of them while they are fighting. The first with the villagers didn't know about that. They shot from that. And later they knew that the village was in front of the soldiers. Then they shot from the back. They must die for the soldiers. Very dangerous, very unfaithful, and was afraid of the soldiers. Kill, burn, rape.
So James, can you tell us what's happening inside of Burma right now?
The situation there has been appalling for 40 or 50 years as the Karen have been hunted down by the Burma army. They've been burnt out of their villages, their women have been attacked and raped, the men are shot on sight in a campaign to dominate and control, and some say actually destroy the actual fabric of Karen society and destroy the ability of the Karen people to survive for themselves in these areas of Karen state.
You have a nominally civilian government leading the country, but the army has all the power. You have Aung San Suu Kyi, an icon of democracy, who really can't do much. And then you have ceasefires in some areas like Karen State and Chin State, but still fighting continues. I just came out of Karen State last month. My whole family were on relief mission, and there was fighting. We were fired up ourselves. We comforted a widow whose husband was gunned down right in front of her. The fighting continues even in ceasefire areas such as Karen or Chin or Newmont State.
How many villages do you think have been destroyed by the Burmese army?
Over 3,000 villages have been destroyed in the last few years in Karen State. There was a large offensive between 2006 and 2008 in northern Karen State, and that left more than 3,000 villages destroyed by the Burma army.
Do you know why they're doing this to the Karen people?
I think they see them as a threat to the ability of the Burman ethnic group and particularly the Burma army to control. Its big concern is having lots of different fractured groups within Burman society, and they want to make it one Burman ethnic nation with any dissent or armed rebellion completely crushed. The Karen have never surrendered their weapons. A number of other groups have signed ceasefires, but the Karen have never done that. And so the Karen are continually seen as a threat to the peacefulness of the Burmese regime. A Burmese regime that spends less than 1% of its gross national product on education, less than 1% on health, but about 40+% on the military. They have about 400,000 soldiers that they use to dominate and impose fear on all the different ethnic groups in Burma, not just the Karen, but the Burman people. Obviously we've seen them hugely oppressed, but also the Kachin, the Arakan, the Shan. All these different ethnic groups are oppressed by this military machine.
I was so scared. I hid inside the outhouse for a long time until it was silent. When I walked outside, everything was gone, burned or dead. Smoke was still in the air. I wandered into the jungle for over 3 hours until I heard the sound of my father's voice. I was so happy he was alive. My father wanted to care for me, but didn't have any money. And our village was gone. He didn't want me to starve, so I was left at the refugee camp, where I could get some food. Eventually, I had to leave the camp. I couldn't stay there any longer, but I needed a home. I was told of a woman named Miss Emerald. They called her Mother, and she would take me in. When I arrived at her home, I was welcomed with open arms. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt love, and I felt safe. Miss Emerald began to educate me and teach me all about God and His love. I even learned about forgiveness. Today, I pray for the soldiers who attacked my village. I love Miss Emerald. I am very happy. I am safe.
I didn't know what to expect when I met Miss Emerald, but I was really surprised that she was very humble. She was a very thin woman, but she just carried herself with so much dignity, and I love that about her. And when she smiled, her whole face would light up. It was fun to see that. But I could also see she was a very compassionate woman. And she really loved the children, and the children loved her. I always will remember the children peeking around the corner when we were visiting and looking at us, and they were giggling, and it was fun. You know, you could just tell that she was looking at them, and she knew exactly what they were doing. So it was fun to see the relationship between her and the children. And I didn't really know what to expect, because here this woman was older and trying to run this entire orphanage. When I was talking with Miss Emerald, I was in a room where there was portraits all along the wall, and I started asking her about who these people were, and they were her family. And as she kept talking about different ones, I realized, oh my goodness, this is incredible history that she's telling me, and I don't want to lose this history. I mean, she's 86 years old. I don't know how much longer she's going to live, and she has all this information inside of her. And the more she started telling about her story, I realized it wasn't just about her, but it was about her family.
Yes, that is my grandmother, Do Saint Ji.
Do Saint Ji?
Yes, Do Saint Ji.
When was it?
It was in 1905. They came up from Delta, grandmother and grandfather. At that time was, I think, 19 something. They came up here, and the British government gave them this big plot, 300 feet by 200 feet. Started at that time, my grandmother was a very good-hearted woman.
Miss Emerald absolutely adores her grandmother, and she really credits this whole legacy of taking care of these children to her grandmother. And they went through a lot of difficulties, and they had owned rice paddies, but they had lost them. Her husband Manji and Grandma Sain had to move up to Tangi because their oldest son Ukumbu had found a job up there in Tangi. And so they went up there, and Grandma Sain heard about a village that had lost all of their homes because they were just made out of the bamboo and the thatched grass roofs, and the fire had basically not only destroyed what they owned, but some of the people lost their lives, and there was orphans that were up there. So she, by herself, on her own, went there to that village, and she brought in 5 boys to basically raise in her family. And then she heard about other boys down in the Delta where she was from that were being abused. And so she went down there and got those boys. And so she had 8 children that she added to her own 6 children that she was raising. And from then on, she just kind of opened up her door.
Before Japanese occupation, my father died. Yes, my father died. My mother was uneducated. That is why my uncle and my 3 aunts, all of them looked after us and the orphans. Our benefactors and benefactresses, they looked after us very well. They gave us good education. They loved us very much. Because of them, we can stay like this. In 1958, 5th March, we started this orphanage, Doji Doge Orphanage. We give that name after our 2 aunts. At the time, there was about 30, 40 orphans. 30, 40 orphans, with 3 sisters. We don't get married. And my elder sister, my younger sister, and myself, we look after the children.
And when I was reading about your story, there were times when people came and they were in great need.
Yes, yes.
And you would give to them what you had to eat for the
Yes,
days.
yes.
And what did God do?
Again, God provide more than that. A widow with 7 children during that Uniwin's time. have nothing to eat. For 3-4 days, they're lying in bed. And then they ask me something, and a half bag of rice. I give them all. And the children told me, "Mother, why do you give them all?" "Don't worry," I said. And evening, one of my friends brought 2 big bags of rice. Said, "Just you know that is the meaning of giving. You must give. To love your neighbor as yourself," I said. We all are neighbors. And people on the road are neighbors. People in the town and the whole world. Those who are in suffering, everything, who are starving, one in great danger, please pray for them. Can do nothing. I always taught my children that, to keep a good heart. Looking others with good eyes, and help them. Don't say bad things for others. I never said things to others. I'm always happy. I'm always happy, jolly, never sorry. Yes. Some friends, they used to come to with tears and all, something wrong. I talked to them to this and that, and they laughed and they happily went back. That is my talent. I can give happy to my friends.
So when I first met Miss Emerald, they had actually brought in an 18-day-old baby, and I didn't think the baby was real. The mother had dropped off the baby that day because her husband had just died. She couldn't provide for the baby. So they handed the baby to me, the baby wet the diaper, and they said, "Pat, why don't you name her?" I'm like, okay. So I thought of the grace of God, and I said, how about Grace? And they said, how about Patricia Grace? I'm like, okay. So we named her Patricia Grace. When I went back 2.5 years later, I was excited to see little Patricia Grace. And I'm looking all over for this little girl about 2.5 years old. I don't see a little girl at 2.5 years old, but I see this little boy. And they said, "This is Patricia Grace." I'm like, "No, not Patricia Grace. That's Patrick Grayson." You know, I said, "You can't give him Patricia Grace. That's a girl's name." And it was just amazing. But I offered him a Beanie Baby or a Matchbox car. It was a little orange Charger. And he wanted that little orange car. He's all boy. And I thought, he can't have the name Patricia Grace. He needs to have Patrick Grayson. So it's just neat to have been able to name a baby. I'd never been able to name a baby before in my life. And so it's just to see, you know, Miss Emerald's home is really a haven for these kids who have lost everything and otherwise have no place to go. If these kids were on the streets, a lot of them would have died by now. They would have died or been trafficked.
So when you look at Burma as a whole, there is a movement towards a kind of democracy, but it's the kind of democracy run by a government that decides exactly what the rules are. And fighting continues around the entire perimeter of Burma with displacement ongoing. Right now, looking at the last 20 years, we can say there's over 1 million internally displaced inside Burma, and probably that number outside in other areas, including the 1 million Muslims. And that's the current situation in Burma.
My name is Ang Mian. I'm 19 years old. My brother and I have grown up with Miss Emerald taking care of us. In her home is where I learned about Jesus and His love. I want other people to know about Jesus, so I told Miss Emerald I wanted to go to Bible school. She helped me, and today I'm going to Bible school to become a pastor. I will go into the village and tell others about the love of Jesus and how He saved us. I am so grateful for Miss Emerald.
When Miss Emerald's parents passed away, her and her siblings actually moved into the orphanage and were part of the orphanage. You know, they were some of the kids being taken care of. And then when the aunts and uncles, when they passed away, then she and her sisters would take over. And one of her sisters was just very brilliant, and she actually was an architect, and she designed the orphanage that they built the house. And years later, it was sad because Miss Emerald was a teacher, and she had some students, and one of the students came to her one day and said, you know, because Miss Emerald, they had to take out a loan because they had bad drainage around the house, and so they had to spend about $20,000 to fix the drainage, otherwise the government would give them trouble. But she had a student that said, you know, my uncle is a real estate agent, and he's really good with real estate, and we can help you take care of this this loan and everything else. And so Miss Emerald had the money to pay it off, the $20,000 to pay off the loan. Before that, she was just barely making the interest, just paying the interest payments. And so they paid the loan off, and then they came to her one day. She was very sick, she was in bed, and they had folded the paper under, and they said, we need you to sign this paper from the bank saying that the loan is paid off. And she was very sick, she had a high fever and was not feeling well at all, and they said, we need to have you sign this right away. And so Miss Emerald just signed it, and what she didn't realize till later was there's actually power of attorney. So she gave power of attorney to this teacher and the uncle, and they sold half of her property to a Chinese businessman for pennies on the dollar. So the man got half of the property for very little money. Miss Emerald didn't see any of that money. Thankfully, they were able to fight that, and the government stepped in and said she could stay there until she dies. And so when I heard about it, I thought, this is not right. These kids have been through war, they've lost their families, they've traveled very long distances to get here, they've been through so much trauma, and Miss Emerald has had to trust the Lord all these years to provide, and so they did everything they could legally to try to stop this man from getting the property. There was nothing they could do. And so when we found out about it, we decided to go ahead and raise the money. And so we've been able to raise over $400,000 to build a new orphanage. The land has been purchased, the water and electricity is there, there's a wall put up around it, and we're just waiting on building permits so we can start building the dormitories. We actually didn't tell Miss Emerald we were doing this, and so we brought her to the property a couple of years ago. After we bought the property, we brought her to the property to surprise her. And when she saw the property, she got so excited. She said, it's beautiful here. I'm going to pray that I can live 10 more years so I can enjoy this with the kids. And it was just so beautiful to see her not have to worry about where would the kids go when she passes away. The kids will be provided for. Actually, her daughter-in-law will keep the orphanage going. There's ladies that will be helping out as well to make sure the kids are educated and that the kids grow up and really follow the Lord. And so we're really excited what God has done.
Nothing is impossible with God. That is why I love Him. I trust Him. He loves me too.
Hi, my name is Patrick Klein, the founder and director of Vision Beyond Borders. I just love the story of Miss Emerald. She's such a precious lady, just so full of faith and love of Jesus. I think that she's a modern-day hero of the faith, and I think that her story inspires us to trust God and to step out and believe God for great things. She's seen God's faithfulness for many years to provide for over 1,000 children. Vision Beyond Borders is able to help people like Miss Emerald with clothing and food and medical supplies and hygiene, school supplies, and others, many others like her because of your generous support. We appreciate your support, we thank you for your support, but through your continued support and prayers, we can keep helping more and more people like Miss Emerald around the world that are in need. I promise you that 100% of what you give toward a project goes directly toward that project. If you would like to help us, go to our website, which is visionbeyondborders.org. Vision Beyond Borders, that's BORDERS.org, or call the number on your screen. Please keep praying for Burma And please pray for Miss Emerald and those children. They're precious people, and we just thank you for your time. Thank you, and God bless you.